The lucky country was a lie. The auctioneer's voice cracks on the final bid. A young dad squeezes his partner's hand, mouths, "We can't afford Australia." The hammer falls, sold for $1,000 more than they have. By Monday, the rental's gone too. Empty inspection lines, $10 lettuce, $6 petrol blinking at the servo. The GP clinic's sign reads, "Closed to new patients." At the airport, departure boards glow like exits. They were told this was the lucky country. But the middle feels like it's slipping, wages up, wallets thinner, record building, no vacancies, record migration, skill shortages anyway. Tonight, we follow money, policy, and people to learn why the middle is vanishing. The dream phrase, from lucky country to leaky country. To understand how we got here, we need to go back. After World War II, Australia wrote an unwritten contract. Work hard, own a home, raise kids near good schools, count on decent public services, retire with dignity. A 3-bedroom on a quarter-acre block wasn't a fantasy. It was the plan. Your wage broadly tracked productivity, your mortgage tracked your wage, and your suburb had a GP, a bus route, and a footy oval that didn't flood every spring. Meanwhile, something else was happening. A culture formed around steady security, house keys as adulthood, weekend barbecues as glue. Superannuation would come later, but the foundation was simple. 1 income could service the loan, 2 incomes felt safe. If you kept your nose clean, you moved forward. Then the 1990s and 2000s rewired the scoreboard. The mining boom roared. China's hunger for iron ore and coal pumped rivers of money through company profits, state budgets, and household confidence. Headline numbers sparkled, but underneath, a quiet pivot took hold. Asset prices, especially housing, started running ahead of wages. The family home stopped being just shelter and became a strategy. Banks loosened. Tax settings nudged people to treat property like a supercharged savings account. This was the moment everything changed. Negative gearing, reintroduced in 1987 after a brief mid-1980s pause, the 50% capital gains tax discount from 1999, and interest deductibility for investment property didn't just tilt the table, they made bricks and mortar the nation's favorite retirement plan. What nobody knew at the time was how quickly a culture of saving would morph into a culture of leverage. Household debt climbed. A mortgage wasn't just a roof, it was a lever to buy another roof. Equity became a magic word. Paper wealth rose faster than pay. While that was happening in the suburbs, services were straining, cities ballooned, hospitals filled, schools capped enrollments, commuters watched travel times bloat as housing pushed people farther out beyond the train lines and bus timetables designed for a smaller, slower Australia. Infrastructure lagged the growth it was supposed to support. The pressure cooker didn't build randomly, it built where policy pushed it. Inside kitchens, the bargain felt different. A young couple now needed 2 incomes to land that first mortgage, and even then the weekly budget had no slack. Meanwhile, the older cohort sat on soaring assets. On paper, everyone was richer. In the checkout lane, half the country felt poorer. Wage growth decoupled from productivity over the 2000s and 2010s. Profits had a good decade, pay packets didn't. The barbecue talk shifted, from adventures to interest rates, from holidays to offsets, from which suburb to how far can we push. Here's where it gets personal. A teacher who once could buy near her school began commuting across postcodes. A nurse grabbed permanent night shifts because the loading helped keep up with a loan that had reset higher. A tradie who'd always dreamed of a shed out back was now bidding against investors using tax-favored finance to buy the same fibro place he grew up in. The dream wasn't gone, but it was fraying. Meanwhile, what nobody planned for was concentration. Growth pooled in Sydney and Melbourne, pulling people, money, and services into magnets. Regional towns saw surges at the edges without the pipes, roads, or staffing to absorb them. Hospitals recruited overseas nurses while closing local maternity wings after hours. Parents queued for bulk billing clinics that weren't bulk billing anymore. The promise of universalism, good enough for everyone, slid toward tiered access, where the right postcodes softened the queues. Politically, the ground shifted too. Homeowners became a voting bloc with one wish: don't let prices fall. That meant every planning debate, every rezoning, every change to tax concessions crashed into a wall of fear. What happens to my nest egg? The system answered by protecting the asset ladder at the top rungs while telling the bottom rungs to climb harder. But there was one problem: when the ladder leans, climbing gets riskier. Let's talk leverage again. Low rates taught a generation the wrong lesson: debts don't bite. Then rates rose quickly. Households carrying big loans met higher repayments just as groceries, energy, and insurance jumped. The lucky ones used buffers, redraws, family help. The rest cut everything non-essential and hoped the next bill wouldn't bounce. Meanwhile, rents ran, vacancy vanished, and anyone without an asset faced moving repeatedly farther from work, with kids switching schools like suitcases. Now remember, none of this is a morality play. Families did what the rules rewarded. Governments banked stamp duty and bragged about growth. Banks lent into an asset that rarely falls. Councils pushed back on density and wore the blame for shortages. Employers enjoyed flexible labor without raising pay to match living costs. Everyone acted rationally. Together, the results feel irrational. This is the tension at the heart of the lucky country myth. If luck means you can buy in, you'll call it fair. If luck means you rent forever, you'll call it rigged. The gap between those experiences isn't just money, it's time, distance, stress, and the quiet math that decides whether to have a second child. As services buckle, the middle stops feeling carried and starts feeling carried away. 3 decades ago, the path was clear. Finish school, learn a trade, or get a degree, buy a modest place, move through life's chapters. Today, the path is crowded with detours that cost money, childcare that eats second incomes, private health to avoid the queue, tutoring because class sizes ballooned, car dependence because the train doesn't reach your suburb. Every workaround steals the slack that used to make middle-class life feel stable. And here's the pivot we'll follow from here. The pressure cooker isn't random, it's designed. Tax shapes behavior. Planning shapes geography. Incentives compound into outcomes that feel inevitable only in hindsight. To see why housing became the gravity well that pulls the rest of the story, we have to step inside the architecture that turned roofs into balance sheets and homes into battlegrounds. Housing, the gravity well. To understand the squeeze, step into a Saturday open home. The line wraps past the jacaranda. Half the crowd are renters clutching payslips. The other half are investors with spreadsheets. They're not looking at the kitchen, they're looking at the tax. Negative gearing sits quietly in the corner. It says borrow to buy, rent it out, and if the rent doesn't cover the loan, claim the loss against your wage. The capital gains discount is the wink that follows, hold for more than a year, and when you sell, only half the profit counts toward tax. Interest deductibility turns repayments into a business expense. Together, they don't just reward ownership, they reward owning more than one. Households became small property funds without needing to say it out loud. Here's the action on the ground. A young couple bids with a bank pre-approval sized to their wages. Across from them, an investor bids using equity from 2 earlier purchases. The investor can afford to run a loss each year because the tax system shares the pain now and the discount softens the gain later. The couple can't share their rent with the ATO. If they lose, they'll be back next Saturday. If they win, the repayments cut close. Stakes feel personal, the crowd knows it, tension makes silence loud. Meanwhile, demand gets turbocharged by people, not just policy. Record migration pours in students, skilled workers, families, but the new arrivals don't bring new bedrooms with them. In 2022-2023, net overseas migration surged to historic highs while vacancy rates fell to record lows in major cities. Short-term visas cycle faster than construction can respond. Airbnb and short-stay conversions skim stock away from long-term renters in the very suburbs where hospitality and universities hire. Investor appetite rises each time prices rise, because rising prices look like the safest bet in town. Supply on paper sounds simple, just build, but the choke points are baked into how we decide where and how to live. Zoning keeps density low near jobs and trains. Approvals stretch for months, sometimes years, as neighbors object and councils juggle traffic, shade, and parking. Infrastructure lags because pipes, roads, and schools cost real money and time. Builders face surging material costs and a wave of insolvencies that leaves cranes frozen mid-sky. Projects stall. The pipeline thins. What nobody sees from the auction lawn is the micro-friction in every step. A small infill apartment block needs a rezoning tweak. That triggers a traffic study, a heritage check, a height debate, a shadow diagram for a winter afternoon no one will remember. Each friction has a local logic. Together, they form a wall. The wall protects the existing street and punishes the missing homes that never get built. The shortage is invisible when you stand on a quiet road. It's crushing when you search one bedroom under $500. Then there's the human math. A nurse rents a unit 3 suburbs from the hospital. The landlord sells. She bids on a townhouse with a friend to split costs. They lose to an investor who plans to renovate and list on short stay. She moves farther out. Her commute doubles. The second job she used to take becomes impossible because she's on the road. 2 hours a day turns into 2 hours a day for years. That's birthdays missed, sleep traded, patience thin. Renters feel the squeeze first because prices reset faster than mortgages. Rent bidding wars aren't formal, but everyone knows the script. Offer above the listing, prepay a few months, add a glowing reference from your boss. Adult kids stay longer at home, couples delay kids. Friends who'd share a cheap place near the city scatter to the fringes. Regional spillovers pop as people leapfrog the city limits, pushing up rents in towns that never planned for sudden population jumps. Meanwhile, owners aren't immune. Rate hikes slam households who borrowed at the lows. Interest-only periods end, fixed loans roll off cliffs. Insurance spikes in flood and fire-prone suburbs add thousands to annual costs. Strata levies climb as buildings age. The myth that owning equals stability now comes with a footnote: it's stable if you can hold on. Politically, each attempted fix hits a contradiction. Loosen zoning and locals worry about parking and sunlight. Tax investors more and existing landlords warn of rent hikes or sales that displace tenants. Cap short stays and tourism operators protest. Boost first home grants and prices lift to swallow them. Unlock greenfield land and infrastructure costs balloon while commutes stretch. But therefore logic traps policymakers, every lever has a shadow. Here's the impact that rarely gets said. Housing moved from being a cost of living to being the cost of everything. Employers can't hire because staff can't live near work. Schools lose young teachers. Hospitals lose nurses. Cafes rotate staff weekly because people keep moving. The asset economy siphons energy from the wage economy. When rent eats half your pay, you don't start a business. When your mortgage eats half your pay, you don't take risks. The country becomes cautious by design. And yet there are paths that work. Mid-rise near train stations. Build to rent with long leases and fair eviction rules. Faster approvals with clear codes. Tax settings that don't reward running annual losses to win a discounted gain. Infrastructure that arrives before the cul-de-sac fills. Cities that grow up, not just out. But the choices cut across powerful habits, and habits have voters. Back at the auction, the hammer falls. Another family resets their search radius. Another investor adds a line to a spreadsheet. The gravity well deepens, pulling wages, services, and life plans into its orbit. And even if you manage to stay in place, the next question hits: can your pay keep up with the price of standing still? Wages versus prices, the silent pay cut. Stand in a supermarket aisle on a Tuesday night and listen. People aren't comparing brands, they're comparing weeks. Wages say one thing on paper, the trolley says another. The silent pay cut arrives not as a headline but as a choice. Skip the butcher, switch the cereal, stretch the petrol to Friday. It's a grind disguised as normal. Here's the split. For years, productivity ticked along and profits did too, but pay packets lagged. Enterprise bargaining thinned outside big workplaces. Casual and contract roles grew where security used to sit. The scoreboard didn't stop moving, it just stopped moving in sync with wages. Then prices jumped: energy, groceries, insurance, and the gap went from annoying to brutal. This was the moment everything changed for household math. Electricity bills used to be a dull quarterly envelope. Now they're a shock twice a year. Gas rose. Groceries carried weather, fuel, and supply chain scars and passed them through. Insurance took the climate bill and mailed it to your letterbox. Childcare climbed faster than promotions. Every category that keeps a family functioning asked for more at once. Meanwhile, indexation didn't catch what it needed to. Bracket creep quietly nudged people into higher tax bands without making them richer. Fees rose, school levies, licensing, registrations, more friction on the same wheels. And then HECS indexation bit hard in high inflation years. A debt you barely noticed after graduation suddenly grew while you were sleeping, taking a slice of every pay cycle just as rent or repayments demanded more. While that was happening, households tried to outrun the treadmill. Overtime got popular again, paid or not. Second jobs crept in. Side hustles walked the line between hopeful and necessary. Families traded down, fewer dinners out, fewer sports for the kids, cheaper petrol days, dental checkups delayed, milestones shifted, weddings shrank, babies waited. The invisible tax was time spent calculating, comparing, postponing. Let's follow one family. Aaron teaches year 5. Marcus works nights in logistics. Their rent went up by $80 a week. The power bill added another $50 a month. Insurance jumped $200 a year. Aaron's HECS indexation added a few thousand in a single go, stretching the repayment line just as her union won a modest raise. On paper, they're up. In the account, they're down. They cancel swimming lessons, keep one car, and Aaron takes tutoring after school. Marcus picks up Saturdays. They still feel behind. Meanwhile, employers face their own squeeze. Small businesses see rent rise, inputs rise, premiums rise, passing it on risks losing customers, not passing it on risks bleeding out. Wage offers land in the gap between compassion and survival. The hospitality owner who wants to pay $28 an hour is also staring at tripled insurance and a landlord who knows what comparable tenants are paying. Energy tells a similar story with a twist. Households want to move to efficient appliances or rooftop solar to cut bills, but the upfront cost punishes the very people who need the savings most. Even with rebates, the payback period collides with tight budgets, especially after rapid energy price increases from 2022. Renters can't make the switch. Owners weigh a 5-year payback against a budget that doesn't have 5 spare months. A sensible long-term decision becomes a short-term impossibility. Here's where the psychology digs in. When every bill feels like a surprise, your world shrinks. Anticipatory anxiety sets in, people stop booking ahead, they stop planning the road trip, the course, the renovation, risk appetite drops. Ambition presses pause. The economy's engine hums on confidence, and confidence is built on spare capacity. Take away the slack and the society becomes careful, anxious, slower. Meanwhile, the public-private split widens inside wallets. Families who can pay jump queues, private health for quicker scans, private tutoring to beat class sizes, paid daycare hours to maintain jobs. Families who can't wait their turn, and the turn gets longer because more people opted out. The system feels worse for everyone at once. Out-of-pocket costs deter care, which becomes bigger care later, which costs more. Remember that ladder from earlier? The wage rung used to be sturdy. Now it flexes under variable hours, gig shifts, and broken weeks. Underemployment hides in the averages. People with jobs who want more hours can't get them. Others have hours they can't survive on without extra hustles. The spreadsheet says employment is high, the pantry says something else. And yet there's a lever that keeps stalling, productivity that actually shows up in pay. Training, tech, process improvements, when they land well, they should lift output and wages together. But the pathways jam, skills recognition drags, software arrives without redesigning work, and gains pool in profits or prices, not in payslips. People sense it. They feel like they're running someone else's upgrade. In the aftermath of the rate rises, mortgage-heavy households cut back hardest. Retail notices, services notice. The cafe loses early morning regulars. The swim school loses Tuesday. The mechanic hears, "Can we hold off a month?" Meanwhile, renters with no buffer become the shock absorbers of the economy. When anything hits, it hits them first and last. The silent pay cut isn't a headline, it's a habit and a stress loop. Budgeting becomes triage. It's the extra shift that's no longer optional. It's the holiday that becomes a long weekend at home. It's the second child becoming a maybe. It's the teacher who moonlights, the nurse who doubles, the tradie who says yes to jobs they'd usually knock back. If wages can't carry the load, people try to carry it themselves, and that load lands on backs, marriages, and futures. If the ladder up is wages and the rungs are cracking, people look for another ladder. The promise whispers, get more skills, climb faster. But what if the skills ladder is crowded, expensive, and missing half the steps? The skills trap: degrees, debt, and closed doors. If wages won't lift you, skills are supposed to. Study more, qualify higher, land better pay. That's the promise. Walk onto any campus and you can feel it, thousands of students buying a ticket to the middle. But the escalator stalls right after the exam hall. Universities expanded faster than the ladders they feed. More places, more degrees, more glossy brochures. Meanwhile, the job market narrowed. Entry roles that once trained beginners ask for 2 years experience. Internships multiply, unpaid or underpaid, priced for students who can work for free. Graduates drift into roles that don't use their qualifications, learning quickly that graduate can mean casual with a lanyard. HECS used to feel painless, pay nothing now, a slice later. Then inflation spiked and indexation bit hard. In 2023, HECS helped debts indexed at over 7%. Overnight, balances grew just for existing. You opened your MyGov and watched the number jump while your rent jumped too. Repayments accelerated as the threshold inched up slower than prices. The debt, meant to be gentle, became a headwind. It isn't just the total, it's the drag on choices. Moving out, changing jobs, starting a family. Meanwhile, the vocational path, the trades, the practical certificates, was treated like a consolation prize even as the country ran short of electricians, carers, mechanics, and builders. Apprenticeship wages can't touch big city rents. A first-year apprentice sees the same listings as a consultant. One can chase share houses, the other chases a couch. Completion rates suffer because the maths doesn't work. Employers need apprentices, apprentices need a place to sleep and a train that runs. There's a loop that traps people at the start. Licensing requires supervised hours. Employers want licensed workers. You need experience to get the license. You need a license to get the experience. Nursing grads chase graduate programs that don't fit the intake calendar. Teachers finish placements into schools with no mentor time left. Engineers send resumes into portals that filter for keywords before a human reads a sentence. The ladder isn't broken, it's missing rungs. Let's sit with Layla, a physiotherapy grad. She did everything right, volunteered at a clinic, top marks in anatomy, weekend shifts at a pharmacy. The hospital intake shrank this year. The private practice wants 2 years experience and client book potential. She takes a casual job as a support worker, good work, low pay while applying again. Her HECS ticked up by thousands with indexation. She can't move out of home without torching her savings. The degree didn't lie, the market hedged. Or Sam, a Sparky's apprentice. He's on the outskirts, 90 minutes from most jobs. TAFE classes are in the city, tools aren't cheap, neither is fuel. The landlord sells, the new lease is higher, the train line is closed on weekends for works. He thinks about quitting. Everyone tells him the money's great once he's qualified. The bridge between here and there is the problem. International talent sits in another maze. Skilled migrants arrive with degrees and experience. Recognition often drags forms, assessments, fees. An engineer drives Uber while waiting for a skills assessment. A nurse works as an assistant in nursing because the registration takes months. Employers complain about shortages. The system keeps the door half shut for the people already through it. Meanwhile, universities become funding machines for export education. Students arrive believing the brochure, study work, pathway to skilled roles. They find shifts in hospitality and logistics, then face limits on hours, higher rents, and crowded classes. Some thrive, many tread water. The pipeline feeds the economy's demand for labor while promising something the labor market doesn't consistently deliver. What nobody tells high schoolers is that the pay premium for degrees depends on timing and field and varies with local demand cycles. Haymarket marketing grads saturate the city at the same moment aged care facilities can't staff Tuesday. The guidance counselor didn't lie, they just didn't have the map of bottlenecks. Parents repeat the mantra uni opens doors because it opened theirs in a different decade with cheaper rent and fewer graduates. Inside workplaces, the skills we say we want aren't the ones we reward. Soft skills, communication, teamwork, initiative matter, but selection filters for brand names and neat CV arcs. Lateral moves that build capability look messy. Career breaks look risky. Hiring managers pad job ads with wish lists that scare off capable applicants who don't tick every box. A shortage becomes a stalemate. Then there's the tech wave. Short courses promise to reskill you into data, cyber, AI operations. Some align with strong demand, others don't. Some deliver, others deliver certificates without networks. The successful alumni had a friend at a firm or a mentor who opened a door. Everyone else learned that skill plus access beats skill alone. The lesson is brutal and simple. Capability without a pathway is potential stranded. For families, the skills trap shows up as hedging. Students pick degrees with options, double down on minors, stack credentials. The cost rises while the signal blurs. Employers see more paper, not always more preparation. Meanwhile, the best preparation placements with hands-on supervision get squeezed by staff shortages. Mentors don't have time to mentor because they're covering shifts. Let's talk pressure valves. Some take the overseas route, UK, UAE, Singapore, where pay matches living costs or tax settings stretch salaries further. Others drop out of the formal ladder entirely, building small businesses online, trading time zones for autonomy. Many stay and cope, longer commutes, longer timelines, later milestones, hoping the door will open next intake, next budget, next cycle. Here's the sting. We told a generation that education is the answer. It still is, but education without matched demand, fair debt settings, and real on-ramps becomes a riddle. The country can't fix wages without productivity, can't lift productivity without skills, and can't convert skills without pathways. While the young squeeze up, the system quietly reroutes opportunity toward assets.